At Calvo's Insurance, a legacy of trust, serving Micronesia since 1938. Matson and the Adahi Tano program. Cars Plus, home of Guam's first and only lifetime limited powertrain warranty. McDonald's of Guam, I'm loving it. And King's Restaurants, always open, always local, and serving up favorites for over 40 years.
Now on Prime Time, federal help for Guam's only public hospital can't come soon enough. Chris Barnett has that report. Plus, Sabrina Salas-Matanani has an update from last night's Governor's Physicians Advisory Group meeting, and a new political action committee focused on the private sector launches with a virtual press conference. Nestor Lecanto has full details. Hafide Guam, and good evening. If you're joining us anywhere all over the world on our live stream, we thank you for watching. Because as our community is waiting tonight's testing numbers from the Joint Information Center indicating the latest batch of COVID tests and the ratio of those Guamanians whose samples have returned positive for coronavirus, let's show you last night's data. 52 more cases of COVID-19 were confirmed by Public Health, bringing the total count to 1,447 cases. 438 samples were evaluated overall, with 866 cases currently active and 568 people having been released from isolation. 13 deaths, as we reported last night on Prime Time, have occurred, with 43 people now currently in the hospital. Guam is in PCOR 1 with maximum restriction lockdowns in effect as per the governor's directive. Well, 32 Guam Memorial Hospital staffers have tested positive for COVID-19 during the second surge. And agency administrator Lillian Posada says federal help in the form of critical care nurses and doctors could not come soon enough.
As the investigation into whether or not a nurse caught COVID while she was a patient at the Guam Memorial Hospital continues, hospital administrator Lillian Posadas says the data shows GMH patients are safer than their stateside counterparts. Posadas saying the rate of COVID infection for patients and staff in U.S. hospitals is significantly higher than Guam's.
And it's not an uncommon incident.
Right.
So, let's not panic about it. Let's not go, oh my goodness, the hospital is not doing enough. Well, look at the data from the time that we started taking in COVID patients to now. One incident, one person. So, let's not scare the community.
Yeah. Marnette Agabao, a GMH ICU and ER nurse, did not have COVID when she was admitted to the hospital, but she was listed as the island's 8th COVID fatality last week. Posada said Agabao could have caught COVID from a visitor, and the incident is currently being investigated by the hospital's infection control team. Meanwhile, GMH staff have been hit hard by the coronavirus, with Posadas saying during the first wave, 12 hospital staff tested positive for COVID-19. Now, during the second surge, the number of infected hospital staff has almost tripled.
There's actually 32 employees. In this second wave, there are 32 employees, including some doctors, who have now tested positive. So, that taxes our staffing situation, because these individuals have to be out, they have to be isolated. And we have to give them time to heal and to recover.
So that means the hospital's infection control team has its hands full with full-on contact tracing underway.
The infection control team is making sure that if that staff exposed certain patients and even the co-workers within that area, they've been followed up, and, fortunately, none of them have tested positive.
Posadas saying the 32 staff who have COVID are a mix of clinical and non-clinical staff. With the coronavirus sidelining nurses and doctors, she says federal help in the form of DoD critical care frontliners couldn't come at a better time.
If we can use all 15 in the emergency room and ICU, that will be tremendous, because then at least we can open up more ICU beds.
Posadas adding, of the 42 COVID patients at GMH, 6 are receiving ICU-level care, with 3 of those patients on ventilators. She also addressed calls to move non-COVID patients out of GMH and to GRMC, saying the private hospital can start by taking the public hospital's non-COVID telemetry patients. For Guam's News Network, Chris Barnett reports.
Thanks so much, Chris. The Governor's Physicians Advisory Group, in other news, held the first of their bi-weekly meetings last night. And although a bulk of the discussion centered on changing quarantine protocol, Sabrina Salas-Matanani reports that talks also focused on containing COVID at Guam's only public hospital.
32 staff, including doctors and nurses at the Guam Memorial Hospital, out with COVID hospitalizations increasing by the day. The chair of the governor's physicians advisory group, Dr. Calvo Enterprises, says the condition is beyond serious at GMH.
So, we are in overdrive mode. I think that we don't want to be there.
Dr. Wynn says it's clear the governor has to pull the emergency brake, offload non-COVID patients to GRMC in order to keep the engine running at GMH. Discussions, he says, have restarted on the possibility of moving the OB ward out, but like before, have hit a roadblock.
To move the whole line of service to GRMC, now you're really short GMH and the nursing staff because they kind of cross coverage between the OB and the non-COVID patient care. But when you move OB to GMC, yes, we really want to push that. And I think the governor also are open for that. But again, it's all about having enough nursing staff to run it.
Even with FEMA coming to the rescue with additional medical support, Dr. Wynn stresses it's only for 1 month.
Doc, people are paying more attention to what's happening.
Yeah.
Then there are people who are really scared out there about what's happening. And, we're watching how our leaders are reacting, are responding, and they want to know, are we going to be okay? You're part of the inner circle. Are we going to be okay, Doc?
I think right now, Sabrina and Chris, I feel like with all the fire going on right now, people start to move. I think that GMH have no choice right now, and the government will make the move. I mean, at a certain point, she had the responsibility of the people and then responsibility for GMH. So I think with all this thing going on, they don't have a choice no more. GMH have to improve.
The governor's physicians advisory group in the meantime is also discussing changing the 14-day mandatory government quarantine protocol. Dr. Wynn saying that travelers may soon have the option of testing out after 1 week, but must agree in order to go into home quarantine to being monitored through a web-based app. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Sabrina Salas, Matsinani.
Sabrina, boots are on the ground to help the Guam Memorial Hospital with our interactive talk show, The Link, having Civil Defense Administrator Charles Esteves reveal that the feds have come through.
We don't know the exact unit they're coming from, where they're coming from. I don't even know the branch of service at this time. But I did receive a text from one of our members of the FEMA integration team that 8 are coming in today and 7 more are coming in tomorrow.
He said FEMA approved GovGuam's request for medical support after GMH exceeded its capabilities to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Arriving on island today and tomorrow are 2 intensivists, 15 nurses, and 4 respiratory therapists from the DoD. Esteves said the support could possibly double if the need surges again.
What he's going to do besides overseeing the integration of the DoD forces, he's going to actually help us to identify next steps to prepare a contract or to assist us in working a contract for medical personnel. And only because, we're literally taking these people away from other states and territories, right? So even the federal government themselves, they're short on resources. So when they come here and they assess Guam's need and they basically provide us that this short-term temporary support, it's really up to the territory, up to us to kind of come up with the longer solution.
Esteves says it's likely once the deployment is over, the government's contract for medical support will likely include bringing in off-island medical personnel. Well, starting this Friday, the Guam Department of Education will start its school meal distribution program. The initiative is for students only, regardless of their selected model of learning. Superintendent John Fernandez says on Friday they'll be distributing 5 days' worth of non-perishable breakfast items per student at absolutely no cost.
I think the question is, regard to the hot meals and grab and go, and we're looking at that option, but right now, because of the health situation, we're not rushing it at this point.
The drive-through operation is from 9 to 12 every Friday, except holidays and school breaks. Meals can be picked up at all 41 GDOE schools, and families are urged to bring identification. School officials will be verifying their child's attendance at their school prior to distribution. Well, another $9.7 million in pandemic unemployment assistance is in the bank, and the Labor Department says it's now paid out more than $324 million in claims over the last 90 days. Agency Chief Dave Della Sola says they've also applied for the President's Additional Unemployment Assistance Program, which, if approved, should cover the 3 weeks from July 26th through August 15th. He also appealed to displaced or furloughed workers to check out GCC's ongoing Workforce Opportunities Reimagine Conference, which began virtually today and continues through the end of the work week.
This is the time for you to think about seriously what you're going to do next. Do you want to stay in the same job that you have, or do you want to try to take an opportunity to get retrained and go into a demand occupation? There is lots of money out there for training. We've applied, and I hope to get over $12 million in dislocated worker grant. Keep our fingers crossed that we will get awarded somewhere around that dollar amount. And I just want to say the early bird gets the worm.
There's also going to be a virtual career fair on Friday. For more information, you can email workforce@guamcc.edu. Well, a political action committee has been launched to endorse candidates supporting issues important to the island's private sector. By way of a virtual news conference today, representatives of the Action PAC Incorporated organization outlined what they're looking for in political leaders.
The group says it's not affiliated with any specific political party, and its membership includes every major business organization, from the Guam Chamber, the Women's Chamber, the Chinese and Korean chambers, a cross-section of the community itself. Former banker Laura Dakanai is executive director of Action PAC.
Our group is going to be vetting through the candidates. We'll be polling them and finding out how they feel about the different initiatives.
And they will only be endorsing those who support those initiatives, specifically reducing of government, increasing transparency, supporting the military buildup, supporting a part-time legislature, and rolling back the business privilege tax from 5% to 4%. Christine Boletto is the group's chairperson.
We have a lot of ideas on how we can streamline the government, how we can improve transparency, and we want to be able to have open dialogue with these candidates and hopefully with the elected senators to effectuate that change.
The most immediate help the group is seeking is a rollback of BPT. Boletto says the government was able to pay down the deficit, which means it has extra money beyond its operational needs.
At 5%, the more businesses that close down, the less that revenue is going to be for the government. So, we're requesting for a shift in focus to allow our business community to recover from this economic crisis and to allow them to bring back their employees.
As a business owner, we're not the bad guys. We've taken care of our employees as best that we could. We had employees who were homeless, and we housed them for the 2 months of the last lockdown. Okay, but we don't brag about these things. But these are the things that the business community needs to do to bring the island together. And we need the government to help us survive. That's what we're talking about.
For Guam's News Network, I'm Nestor Lecanto.
Primetime will continue right after these messages, so please keep streaming and keep watching. We'll see you after this.
It makes myself and it makes my team members very proud to work for an organization that has been on island for many years with its focus on reliability, dependability, and commitment to the communities that they operate in.
Matson's a great corporate citizen to the community.
We all benefit from any sort of environmental commitment we make. One of the ways that we do that is with our Adahi Utano program. There's action behind it, and so action breeds commitment.
With the Kaimana Gila coming to Guam, this brings a new age and modernization to the island.
It's exciting for me because it's a brand new ship and we can carry more freight into the islands. It just shows growth for Guam and Micronesia.
Matson would be nothing without its customers, and we hope to continue to serve you for decades to come.
Levi's
We give most of our waking hours to preserve yours. When we're in it, nothing exists but you and the person that needs your help. It can be difficult at times. You can't help but take the weight of what you've seen home with you. There are days or nights that I need to leave it all behind, to let it go in the wind. But I'll always come back. I am a first responder, and I have given my life to this.
Social distancing may be the new norm, but connection will always be our tradition. Through good times and tough times, we remain connected with you. Masks may be the new fashion, but protection will always be our style. You can always count on us to protect the things that matter the most. Sanitizing may be the new routine, but caring will always be our practice. We care about your loved ones and the things you value the most. And as we welcome our new normal, one thing remains certain: we will always be here for you. We're open and ready to serve you. Calvo's Insurance, a legacy of trust.
That's when Lil' Mama came through stealing looks. Whoa, she off the rate scale, she had me shook. Yeah, but if you single tonight and can't find your friends, then I hope you don't mind me asking. Do you wanna dance to the music? Do you wanna rock to the beat of the drum? And we could cut it up, cut it up, cut it up, cut it up. Baby, we should cut her up.
KUAM News, winner of the 2020 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Social Media.
A bill passed by your elected senators today may soon enable qualified applicants to receive another one-time stimulus payment of $500. The payments for families with young adult dependents and persons with disabilities who were not included in the federal stimulus package earlier this year. The Help for Families Act, penned by Senator Amanda Shelton, calls for $10 million in funding from the CARES Act. The original measure was allowed to lapse into law without the governor's signature, as it was determined the local legislature cannot appropriate federal funds. But the senator said she's got reassurance from Adelup that the program would be funded, and her new bill today called on the Department of Revenue and Taxation to work out the rules and regulations, with hopefully being able to issue second stimulus payments to qualified applicants.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to thank the Department of Revenue and Taxation for following the law that we as a body passed, and for collaborating with us to ensure these rules and regulations were developed with the people in Guam in mind, and that we are here today to expedite these rules and regulations so that this program can begin. So again, thank you very much.
Now, so you know, Republicans issued a news release panning the bill as an unnecessary delay, saying the chief executive could have implemented the program 2 months ago by way of executive order. Staying with the public sector, the Vice Speaker of the Legislature, Talina Nelson, is leaving office temporarily to fulfill her obligations with the Guam National Guard. The two-term Democrat senator announced today that she'll be on active duty in the coming months, and while she will remain on island, she will not physically be in her Senate office. Yet she says her staffers will be on site to take care of constituent concerns and requests. Nelson, if you didn't know, is a captain in the Guam Army National Guard. Her news release did not say what her duty assignment will be, but she is among the Democrat senatorial candidates who have already advanced to the general election after a bill canceling the primary was signed into law by the governor over the weekend. To crime news, GPD apprehended the suspect of a 2019 burglary case during a traffic stop down in Agate yesterday. 42-year-old Paul Ezra was arrested for driving while impaired and possessing an open container, among other offenses. Officers learned that Ezra was a suspect in a burglary of Shogun Restaurant in 2019 and arrested him on charges of burglary. Ezra was then booked and confined at DOC, and the case has been forwarded to the Attorney General. Speaking of Guam's finest, Guam's boys and women in blue had another pursuit on their hands today as a 17-year-old operating a stolen Scion XB fled from officers during a traffic stop in Asin. The chase came to an end near NCS up in Dedido after the operator of the vehicle struck a marked patrol car. Officers were able to apprehend the minor who attempted to flee on foot. He was taken to DYA on charges of theft of a motor vehicle, eluding and assaulting a police officer. The case was likewise forwarded to the AG. On Friday, the 28th at around 10 in the evening, GPD officers responded to an in-progress home invasion at the Annex Apartments at Finnegodson Road here in Harmon. 26-year-old Rafael Martinez was armed with a knife and attempted to flee on foot, but officers were able to apprehend him without incident. Martinez was arrested for home invasion, resisting arrest, and criminal mischief. While in police custody, GPD says Martinez had to be taken to GMH for a medical issue and was admitted. He was discharged Sunday and was eventually booked and confined. Please stay tuned, everybody. Coming up after a next commercial break, regional headlines.
Your community calendar is brought to you by Taco Bell. Whether it's your first meal or your fourth meal, we've got you covered. Taco Bell, live Más.
We have the power to improve the schools our kids learn in, the roads we drive on, the healthcare we receive, and the opportunities for more jobs. By responding to the 2020 census of Guam, we can uplift future generations by providing them with the resources they need to grow as a community. Together, we can make a difference. Respond today.
Our island is a gift that we have shared with the world. But in the stillness of today, our island is asking everyone to give us a moment. To be with our family, Ifamagonte, our children, our grandchildren, Itanota, our land, our thoughts, to be creative. Fanhongi, to have faith. To be with the things we know and the things you've come to love. Give us a moment, and we will share one together soon.
Welcome back, everybody. The CNMI's COVID count has gone up after a sailor deployed to Tinian from Guam tested positive for coronavirus. The sailor is part of a team of Seabees supporting a survey for the Tinian port construction project. The sailor was identified by travel screening and tested upon arrival. The individual, along with close contacts, were transported to Saipan. The positive sailor was placed in isolation while the remainder of the Seabees and 2 sailors identified as close contacts were placed in the government quarantine facility at Kanoa Resort. Before traveling to Tinian via military aircraft, the DoD informed the CNMI government that the Seabee team had all tested negative. This positive case brings CNMI's COVID count to 57. Now, for more regional headlines, here's our friends at KSPN2 News in Saipan. Hi, Ashley.
Hafa Guam. Here are the headlines for CNMI.
To date, we've sent out a little over $53.5 million.
With $9 million projected to be sent out this week to those approved for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. Secretary of Finance David Adelig says batches of payments are sent out each week.
Usually payments are sent out by the end of the week. We make that just an internal goal. But if we are able to process earlier, then we release it as soon as we can.
Once the Department of Finance receives the approved files from the Department of Labor, a payment date is posted on an individual's account. But Atelig says this does not mean the individual will be paid on that date.
KUAM software solution, the online tool that they have, we pull that data to start processing payment. I believe it triggers a date on as if we paid it out. But once we receive those files, there seems to be a lot of corrections that need to be done on the file itself, meaning there's a certain format that we have to process, be accepted by the Bank of Guam for our direct deposit ACH transaction. And in order to do that, we need clean files for thousands of people that we're reviewing to get paid. And it takes a couple of days to comb through the data.
Then the funds are released. Many have seen a $0 amount from the Department of Finance in their bank accounts. Atelig says, don't fret, this is a trial to make sure the actual funds will go through.
It was a test transfer. Those that receive 0 transactions, 0.00, that means that's positive. That means it went through a proper account. And those that never received it, obviously we know it's errors that we're trying to correct.
Atelig says those who did opt for paper checks will have to wait at least 10 days after the Department of Finance receives the data, as there are specific regulations by the U.S. Department of Labor that must be followed during the printing process. For more news, visit saipantv.com. For KSPN2 News, I'm Ashley McDowell.
Please stay tuned. Your birthday shoutouts after this.
Nachos come with rules, like don't take the fully loaded chips, don't hog the guac, and never take the last one. But with the Grande Nachos box from Taco Bell, you can break all the rules, because this meal's all yours.
When I need to pay my Docomo Pacific bills or manage my account, all I do is visit mydocomopacific.com. It's easy to set up. I just visit the website and click on the link to set up my account. I filled out the registration page starting with my account number. I received a text message with a temporary username and password. After making initial changes on my security settings, I'm in! Now I can make payments or manage my Docomo Pacific account without needing to leave home. With Docomo Pacific, we're better together.
All right, everybody, it's time we put a smile on your face. Here are tonight's birthday shoutouts. On this September 2nd, we say happy birthday to Jerry DeLeon Diaz. Happy birthday, Jerry, from your GWSH family. Wishing you a blessed and happy day ever on your birthday. Stay safe. Cheers to you. Leilani Florence Kinata, happy birthday to you, aka Lele. We hope you enjoy your special day. Much love coming from Nana and Jaylene. Tony Guerrero blows out the candles today, and if there was ever a competition for the world's greatest mom and Nana, you would be the undisputed champ. Undefeated. Happy birthday. We love you forever. Happy birthday, says your family. Great job, Tony. Jerome Untalan, happy birthday number 49. God bless you always. We love you, says your entire family, especially your wife, your kids, and your grandson. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, Cecilia Rose Muñoz, happy birthday to you. She is in New Mexico. She's a resident of that great state and is 2 years old. But you know what? You got a lot of love coming from this tiny little island, 160,000 people, 30 miles long by 7 miles wide, all wishing you and all our other birthday celebrants the happiest birthday ever. Make sure to register for the Cold Stone Creamery Birthday Club, absolutely free on KUAM.com. That's all it takes to make someone's day, and we all need a little bit of happiness these days. All right, stay tuned. Nestor Lecanto is coming up with In Full Zoom, but remember, everybody, the fight continues. We gotta stay sharp, stay frosty. Mask, gloves, heart, social distancing, inafamalik, altruism. Let's get it done. We can do this. See you next time.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Off the day, everyone. Nestor Lecanto here with another edition of In Full Zoom. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about cannabis, and our guests today are attorney Vanessa Williams, who is the chairperson of the Cannabis Control Board, and Senator Clint Ridgell, who has introduced legislation relating to marijuana, so that we wanted to get an update from both of them on where we are at. I know that the Control Board has been working feverishly over the past few months, interrupted, of course, by the pandemic. But let me start with you, Vanessa. Could you just give us an update on where you guys are right now?
Sure. We have we're underway with the rulemaking process, the administrative adjudication law. So we have finalized our proposed draft for the cannabis rules for to cover all of the different cannabis establishments, and it was sent to the Bureau of Budget Management and Research, BBMR, for requesting that they assist us in performing a preliminary cost impact assessment. We just sent that request last week, and I understand they were in the middle of budget, but it was acknowledged, and we're expecting a response back, and hopefully their assistance in doing that preliminary cost impact assessment before we can schedule our public hearing, because we're required by law to have that cost impact assessment done, disclosed with the proposed draft.
All right. Before we get into the weeds a little bit more about the legislation, let me turn to Senator Clinton. Senator, can you just give us an overview of the legislation that you've sponsored and where you're at with those?
Sure. So, are you speaking specifically about the Cannabis Industry Act that passed already? So,
yeah.
Essentially, I mean, the bill was passed into law, and so really the next step is just for implementation of it via the Cannabis Control Board that's now currently finalizing the rules and regulations. So I'm looking forward to the rules and regulations being finalized. Once those rules and regulations are finalized, there should be some public hearings on it. Then after that, part of the AAA process, or Administrative Adjudication Act, requires that it be sent to the legislature. Then the legislature has 90 days, I believe, to act on it, or I believe the rules lapse into becoming part of the rules. So that's basically the next step. So we're waiting to see the finalized version of the rules, waiting for the Cannabis Control Board to have their public hearings on it. After their public hearings, they can also amend the rules again before they produce their final version of the rules and regulations. So once that's finalized, it'll go to the legislature. We'll have 90 days to look at it and decide what to do from there.
All right. I should have asked you maybe to give us a little bit more of a history to it, because I know that this goes back a number of years. And in fact, Guam was one of the first jurisdictions that approved marijuana law. And so if you can give us a little bit of the history before we get into the new stuff.
Sure. So yeah, basically, through voter referendum, Guam approved medical cannabis. I forget the exact years, but it was a few years ago. Unfortunately, that just never came to fruition. There was a lot of different things that held it up. So when I got into office, I ran, first of all, on a platform that included legalizing cannabis fully and just allowing for full adult use of cannabis, as I thought that might help our economy and just make things easier all around for law enforcement and everything else. So, so I introduced a bill to legalize cannabis for adult use, similar to what's been done in several states now. And we just kind of see that movement increasing across the mainland. And there's even talk about legalization in Asia. So that bill passed and became law and basically set the stage now from what I'm hoping will create a new industry for the island, one that we can also use to help tap into the tourist markets too in Asia.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Guam's auto appearance specialist, Elegant Reflections, has been providing the automotive industry with professional detailing and car care products at its highest quality, from complete detailing, full interior detailing, exterior detailing, headlamp restoration, hand washing, seat and carpet shampoo, engine degreasing, undercarriage cleaning, paint sealant, fabric protection, paint oxidation removal, and so much more. Visit us at our new location. Call 646-5555 for an appointment. Elegant Reflections, Guam's auto appearance specialist, over 20 years of experience.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's, offers fully covered loading and unloading area with individual pin-coded gate and door access. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
So Vanessa, can you just give us some specifics of the law, what you saw as some of the more difficult challenges in kind of going through it with the commission, and what you think would be the biggest issues going into the public hearings, what the public will want to know?
Sure. Okay, so the first part is just some of the issues that we came across in proposing regulations that implement the law. There's several. I mean, first, I think foremost for the board and what we heard from the public at, our, I guess, last 20 or so board meetings is safety and security. We want to make sure that we have sufficiently strict and enforceable rules that ensure we have cannabis product quality, consistency, and safety, right, for the public and for the adults who can use it. Another big policy consideration was, how do we eliminate the black market or, suppress the black market and bring them into our taxable economy? And how do we propose regulations that do that without, hamstringing these licensees or potential licensees by overreaching regulations? Because if they are so tied up trying to comply with every, overreaching regulations or too many, then their costs and they're maybe too high. They won't be competitive with the black market, and that will impact any potential industry or taxable industry we have. And then just the time frame, even if the costs are still low, they may lag behind in supply. So if it takes too long to get supply to the market, consumers will continue and adults will continue to purchase if they already are, which we know, they are, some are. They'll continue to purchase from the black market, whoever their unlicensed dealer is. We also have, other security concerns in terms of distribution and enforcement, to ensuring, this is adult use cannabis or recreational cannabis. We don't want it to come into contact or possession of our children. We want to make sure there's sufficient regulations and security requirements and safeguards so that adults can safely purchase and that they can verify their identity, that these businesses are doing, they are safe because, they have a high value product. And as of right now, it seems they're going to be, a very cash intensive business. So we had to consider that. Other considerations were the extent that we wanted to permit public consumption. The law currently provides that public consumption is not permitted unless specifically authorized by the regulations. And those were some discussions we had at our board meetings is, where are adults allowed to consume cannabis? Are they going to be able to, is it only in the privacy of their own home? What locations, and these licensed locations, where are they in relation to schools, and what zones they're in? And did we want to add any additional restrictions and regulations outside of what's already provided for in the law? And then the final thing, I think I touched on this a little bit, is that we had to make sure that they were not these regulations were not unreasonably impracticable. And those are the exact words that are used in the act, that it was a mandate and, by the legislature, and that we can't make measures that are unreasonably high, that would that pose such a high investment of risk that it would not incentivize the market to flourish. So I think those are the big, broad strokes of the policy considerations and challenges we had in meeting, because those were not, necessarily things that, not all of them at least, that had to be considered when the medicinal use regulations and law were passed. So I've been speaking so long, I forgot the second question. I'm sorry, but I hope
that's all right. But that's plenty. I mean, that's a lot to unpeel there. But let me give an opportunity for the senator to respond. I saw you, Senator, nodding during when Vanessa was mentioning black market. I think that's one of the issues that are important to you. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
Sure, yeah. So, I think people have known for a long time there's a black market for cannabis on the island. And, there's a black market for everything, everywhere in the world. There's a black market for cigarettes. There's a black market for fake Louis Vuitton bags. There's a black market for anything you can think of. There's a black market. So the issue here for me was to try to limit the black market, because you can't eliminate a black market anywhere around the world. No one's been able to eliminate any black markets of any product. So the idea is to limit the black market and try to have as many people produce these products in a white market, or in an actual market that's regulated, in an actual regulated market, so that there's safety taken into account, so that there's quality issues taken into account, and so it can be taxed as well. So that was a big impetus, or big reason for me introducing the bill, is basically to say, hey, let's not turn a blind eye to it and pretend it doesn't exist. It exists out there. People use it for different reasons. Some people use it for medicine. Some people use it for relaxation. It's got proven medicinal benefits, and people haven't been able to avail themselves of the medicinal benefits for the longest time. Another thing that my law does, it allows for people to grow their own cannabis at home. So that allowed medicinal patients now to not have to go through all the hurdles. A medicinal patient can just, if they can get the seeds, they can grow their own at home. And it's a plant we're talking about here. That's another thing that makes it so difficult. It's not like it requires major manufacturing like a Louis Vuitton purse. Like, you can't grow a Louis Vuitton purse at home, but anyone, if they've got the seeds and some soil, can grow cannabis at home. So because of that, the black market has flourished here on Guam. And so I decided, let's make it so that it's legal, so that those who need it for medicine don't need to worry about having plants in their home. There's a limit to the number of plants they can have, but if they need it for medicinal purposes, they can grow a few plants in their home, have their medicine. At the same time, I'm hoping that we can encourage those on the black market to legitimize themselves, and let's get this thing regulated so that they'll be fully regulated and taxed, and limit the black market. And let's I look at it like, people are concerned, of course, because there are, can impair you, but so can alcohol. So I really took a look at how we treated alcohol in the past. The US tried to prohibit alcohol. The prohibition was a massive failure. It led to the rise of gangsters like Al Capone in the roaring 20s and 30s. They were making money off selling bootleg illegal alcohol. And the problem is when they were selling it, they not only got rich, there were no regulations involved in it. So sometimes they sold bad product. So my idea is let's limit that and get it down to the point where we can have a well-regulated industry and have safety guidelines in place as well, because it didn't work when we tried to prohibit alcohol, and it's not working when we're trying to prohibit cannabis. And the truth is cannabis is safer than alcohol because you can overdose from alcohol from just drinking too much, binge drinking. We see it all the time in college campuses in the States that people die from binge drinking deaths. They drank too much alcohol in one sitting. The same is not true for cannabis. There's not a single documented case of a death due to cannabis overdose. So it's proven to be safer than alcohol, yet it's illegal. So I decided let's legalize it the same way that alcohol is legal. And that's where the rules and regulations come in, and sort of that language to not make the rules and regulations too prohibitive. What I've been envisioning is that the rules and regulations should be very similar to alcohol, right? Alcohol is dangerous if done in too much quantity. So, we have limits on when you can buy alcohol, right? You can't buy it, at 3 in the morning anymore. Before you could buy it till 4 a.m., but now you can't. So those are different things that we put in place to make it safer for alcohol. And I think we should treat cannabis similarly.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
With Grand Marnier, you'll dare to put a twist on the traditional that will lead you to somewhere unexpected. Somewhere you can create something better than good. Here, you'll create something grand. Grand Marnier, a visionary blend of fine cognac and bitter orange liqueur. Live grand.
MTO Maintenance will now completely sanitize your home, office, or business with state-of-the-art commercial sprayers. For over 30 years, MTO Maintenance has been committed to the health and safety of our customers. And now, more than ever, a clean home, office, carpets, and furniture is a necessity to our island. Give us a call today. Stay healthy and stay safe, Guam.
Call 647-6861 for an appointment.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah, but let's talk about that unreasonably prohibitive. How much? One of the issues is cost. What are some of the fees, the applications, those sort of things? Are those still barriers to entry, or have they ever been barriers to entry, rather?
Well, I imagine any cost you set is going to be a barrier to some people, right? But what we did do is we did try to, of course, we need to comply with the law in terms of the max licensing fee. And then we did try to break down into the types of, or different costs depending on the size of the cultivation facility. But there will be, I guess we'll see in the public hearing, whether the public thinks these are too prohibitive. One thing we did do, I think we did get some feedback in terms of, and there was some robust discussion on creating like a micro grower. This is still a commercial grower, but a micro grower's license or cultivation license. And I'm interested to hear, what the public has to say about that. We got some mixed feedback at our public meetings, but we hope that, we'll get a better idea of that. And then we'll see, I guess it's, we're going to have to look at the economic impact a year from now. We don't have a baseline, so we don't know. Right now we're at, there's zero, non-existent as our baseline. So we'll find out.
Yeah, we're literally going to be at ground zero. So, Senator, could you just expound on what your thoughts are on commercial supply or commercial industry with respect to marijuana? And there has been discussion about it being a growth industry for Guam, something that can even assist in the tourism industry and bring in tourists who want to come to Guam because marijuana is legal here and it's not in their home countries. So can you expound on that a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm actually just looking at, the Cannabis Control Board actually did commission through, GVB, I believe is the one who commissioned it, right? An economic impact study that kind of takes a look at what the potential economic impacts would be. And, let me just, I have it open now on my laptop. I'm trying to pull up here's an example of some of the potential impacts they have. They look at 80 million in direct tourism spending, 12 million in direct cannabis industry spending. They're thinking 133 million total, including direct, indirect, and induced output. There's a bunch of other potential things. They're looking at increasing jobs. They're anticipating it could potentially create 754 direct jobs and 1,051 indirect jobs. So I'm looking at this as a way to benefit the economy, definitely. And I personally think that this economic impact study is actually very conservative. I actually think, and there's a few numbers I don't want to get into too much now, it would take too much time, but there's some things I think that they kind of underestimated. I think they underestimated a lot of things. But just going off of their estimates, one of the estimates they had is that they took a look at the Asian market, and I believe they cited another study that cited the Asian market, if not mistaken, that they believe there's 85.5 million users in Asia. 85.5 million users.
Wow.
What's that?
Oh, I said, wow.
Yeah, 85.5 million cannabis users in Asia in 2024. And this is from a study conducted by Prohibition Partners. And so they believe it'll create a cannabis market value in Asia of 8.5 billion. First of all, I think that's low, but I mean, we'll go with those numbers. Those numbers are still pretty big. And they talk about the medical cannabis market in Asia accounting for 5.8 billion of that market. Well, right now it's illegal in Asia, so they can't. And we've heard a lot of people from Japan. Japanese groups came out here previously when we were talking about medicinal cannabis, saying that they would love to come here for medicinal cannabis tourism. But we weren't able to get the medicinal cannabis off the ground. So I'm hoping that this will get both of them off the ground. And then we can see tourists coming here specifically for medicinal cannabis or even for just adult use cannabis.
Yeah, but as you prepare to go back out to the public and roll out the rules and regulations for comment, have you been taking a look, has the commission been taking a look at other jurisdictions where marijuana has already been rolled out and is legal, and what have you seen?
Yeah, we definitely, because the nature is, you're creating an industry that didn't exist before. So wherever we could look, wherever their jurisdictions have legalized or decriminalized adult use cannabis, we were looking, Washington, Colorado, California. We had the various agencies, backing up, the Cannabis Control Board has the heads of various agencies, KUAM agencies sitting on the board. So you have those institutions and their expertise, and they were reaching out and discussing from, at the agency to agency level, like the Attorney General's office here was communicating with the Attorney General's office, and I forget which state, if it was Colorado or not. We had Department of Revenue and Taxation and their compliance branch speaking definitely to Colorado and other states. And we have the benefit of public health, who kind of went through they went through research and review in the medicinal side and continue to reach out to other jurisdictions to see, functionally, what are the issues that each agency is going to have in enforcing these regulations. So yes, there was definitely look at various jurisdictions. I will say a lot of, just anticipating a question I get a lot is there's no one jurisdiction that fits. You know, there's nothing that can be just really lifted and say, oh yeah, this is going to work, because you know, you have like our geographical considerations, our demographic considerations, you know, the cost of living here. And then also, of course, we have the policy considerations. You know, what is it that Guam intends to be, and what is, you know, what do we want for our island? How do we want our island to be, you know, have cannabis available?
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
We give most of our waking hours to preserve yours. When we're in it, nothing exists but you and the person that needs your help. It can be difficult at times. You can't help but take the weight of what you've seen home with you. There are days or nights that I need to leave it all behind, to let it go in the wind. But I'll always come back. I am a first responder, and I have given my life to this.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
Nachos come with rules, like don't take the fully loaded chips, don't hog the guac, and never take the last one. But with the Grande Nacho